but I do other things as well, like life insurance. I also do commercial insurance and business insurance, and I do bonds and supplemental insurance as well. So I'm pretty much a one-stop shop, and I have people on my staff that handle financial products as well. I do have my 6 and 63, so I'm able to help you out with all your insurance needs from stem to stern.
All right, appreciate it, Chris. Chris, I brought you on because there are a lot of questions people don't know to ask somebody like yourself. I know. What do you say? You had made a comment on something I saw you like to do, inform people as far as being in insurance. You said you had a quote that your little slogan as far as
my little slogan, hey, customer service with a personal touch. And I'm really big on that. Customer service with a personal touch. And I'm really big on that too, because a lot of agents have that cookie cutter approach where they try to treat and teach everybody the same way. And I don't care if you're a twin, you don't have some different dispositions, and I'm going to cater to, each individual as an individual, because you have different parameters and things that might be different. And you just can't have a one-stop shop when you're talking to people about their personal needs.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, me and Chris got a lot of stuff in common. He went to HBCU. We're rivals. First of all, he's a Tiger. I'm a Tiger, but I'm a JSU Tiger. And he's a Grambling Tiger. So we're on opposite ends of the pole, but we also fraternity brothers as well. And
exactly.
Also me and Chris sit on a bunch of different boards that are involved with NAREB, which is a National Association of Real Estate Brokers. The president, Donnell Williams, called it NAREB. And so people would know that we are an African-American organization. And the one thing I praise Chris on, or I'm watching him on, and things he does is we are about educating, not just educating our people, but educating people individually. So I think Chris is on a lot of different boards, and his movement goes beyond mine. And I'm like, man, this guy don't got time. So I'm just watching the movement, and I thought I was busy. So to meet somebody on the other end that does just as much as you do, you got to give them honor and praise too. So just because I think Chris' philosophy is like mine is you just can't be in your business involved and think you're going to thrive. Exactly. And that's the thing I think Chris has, is he's pivoting beyond just the business itself. So with that being said, Chris, I have a couple questions to ask you. How do you mentor how do you do your clients when it comes to the lifelong clients? Do you go and just put them in a policy, or do you go and educate them year after year?
Oh, year after year. I mean, at policy renewals, I've talked to them personally. A lot of agents have staffs. Don't get me wrong, my staff reaches out to them too, but I still make a point to talk to every customer myself. I have a pretty decent sized book, but I make a point to talk to everybody at a minimum at the renewal. For the autos, usually 6 months, and then for the home is every year. But if anything ever comes up, even between those times, I make sure I take care of my customers. Recently, they had that storm over in Arlington, and what I did, I had my office manager to pull up a report just to see, which customers were in that area, just to make sure everything was okay with my customers. And that's like something really big on that, because I treat people like I want to be treated. I like to be treated extremely well. And me, I'm that type of guy. Hey, if I want to get in contact with somebody, I want somebody to be able to get in contact with me if they need me. I'm probably a rare agent from the standpoint. I tell people call me and I call the insurance directly, the company directly. Even if it's on the weekend, I put my cell phone number on my business cards, and not all my customers have my cell phone number. So if anything ever comes up, just like that, help me give you a prime example, like a hailstorm comes through, like the one in Arlington, where they thought it was a tornado. The reason I tell my customers to call me, first and foremost, I want to make sure they're okay. That's the primary thing I want to find out. Secondarily, I want them to call me too. So what I'll do, if they do think they have some damage, I will actually send a roofer or somebody out there to take a look, or suggest them to get somebody to come out there and take a look, because a lot of people make a mistake. They have the right mindset. They'll call the insurance company. And when you call the insurance company directly and they come out and you don't meet your deductible, say hypothetically you had a deductible of $1,000, but you only had $500 worth of damage, you'll get charged with a zero pay claim. And what that means is they still going to charge. They have to document that they came out there, but those zero pay claims can hurt you because insurance companies look at frequency. So although they didn't pay anything out, you still, I won't say get penalized. It's going to be a notation on your policy that's happened. And I had a customer just recently. Everything was pristine and clean for the most part, but he had 3 zero pay claims. And once again, it's that frequency. So I had to make some adjustments for him in order to write him. And that's one of the situations that you need to know. And a lot of people don't realize that if you call the insurance company directly and you don't meet your deductible, that you get that claim. He thought he was doing the right thing. I told him his premise was right to try to call to make sure everything was okay, but he should have called a third party instead of calling the insurance company directly.
Okay. Hey, one question I want to ask. What about do you recommend a person put flood insurance on their house even though it's not in a flood zone?
Personally, I don't recommend that because the mortgage company lets you know that if you need it or not, because if you're in the floodplain, they're not going to execute that policy if you're in the flood zone. But I don't recommend that. Now, if somebody's just hell bent and think they need it, we can do it. It's not the cheapest thing in the world. However, it's like I think, and I'm only licensed for Texas, but I'm gonna give you an example of what happened in Louisiana a few years ago. I think it was like Alexandria, Central Louisiana, and I think in Baton Rouge as well. They weren't in the flood zone, but I think they had what they call that 100-year flood. This was kind of something as an aberration that came out of the blue that wasn't expected. And when those people did get flooded, they didn't have coverage for that. So, but that was an anomaly. That was something they weren't expecting. That's something that normally happened. But if that were to happen, you would be on the hook because you would not have flood insurance. But I don't recommend it. But if somebody think they really need it, I can do it for them.
Okay. Hey, one more question. I'm gonna get on insurance. I'm actually on insurance, just life insurance versus a variable life insurance policy. Can you explain one or the other?
Well, you should more like you have term policies, and then you have whole life and universal life. And you might hear people say this all the time. They say, Chris, which is, you hear a lot of people say term life is not as good as whole life. And my answer is it depends. I'm gonna use an analogy for like the home. Sometimes you have to lease before you can buy. And I look at term insurance as like leasing to buy. You got something that's permanent. Most term policies are good from 10 to 30 years. And so what I do, I recommend my customers at a minimum to start off with the term, because you can convert it over to a whole life or universal life later on down the road. So I do recommend at least getting a term policy. So once again, that's where you have that one-on-one conversation, trying to see what the person needs. I look at, evaluate, their assets, their home, their cars, other things that may have property that they might own. So when I'm making that designation on which direction we need to go and how much coverage they need, we just have those personal conversations, just trying to find out exactly what they need. Then I also ask them, hey, God forbid if something were to happen, if somebody's a primary breadwinner in the house, you take that into account too, to where, you're making sure that you have enough money allocated so that if somebody were to pass, then, you still won't, lose your lifestyle per se, and you can move forward. Because what happens, most home owners are two income family incomes. So, if somebody were to pass or something were to happen like that, and they lost that financial allocation, a lot of times you see people have to move out of their home. So you want to make sure that you're in a position to where you can stay in your home, make sure you can take care of the kids if you have kids, and then two, if you're relying on, that extra income for as far as a salary, you have that in check as well.
Yeah, I was I got, and when is the best time to get it? Can you versus you think you recommend getting a term policy on your child, or should you get a term policy when you're in your early 20s? When is the best one to get it? I mean, term or variable?
Well, like you said, as soon as possible. Like you said, younger the better. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I heard you. Go ahead.
Okay, no, so to get a term as soon as possible, I'm talking about as young as possible, because, in our community, when I say our community, I'm talking about the African-American community. If, people of color, a lot of times they're hesitant about getting it on, younger kids. They say, oh, that's creepy. No, it's not creepy. It's just being smart, from a financial planning standpoint, because what you'll find out is, depending on what policy you get out, the term policy won't have cash value, but if you get like a universal life or like a variable policy, like you were talking about earlier, those policies build cash value. Now with Allstate, you under 18 years of age, you do have to get, like a universal life or a whole life policy, starting out you can't get a term. With us, you cannot get a term policy at that point. But what happens if you get that, the IUL or the variable life policy, it does build cash value over time. So once again, if you get that policy at a young age, then, it builds up cash value. You can use it going towards, college, or it can maybe use later on. Maybe somebody want to use that to, car or something like that. And the reason I recommend getting it sooner than later is because, as we get older, sometimes we can probably have some things happen as far as illnesses is something to concern. But once you have that policy, they can't take it away. It's in check. We've had situations where people might get sick or something like that. God forbid, kid got the policy when they were 3, but they got diagnosed with cancer something at 17. If that were to happen, that policy is still in check, and it can be messed with. So it's intact, and it'll be moved forward without any penalties, anything like that.
Okay. Yeah, I'm just trying to get that idea. I think people need to know when's the best time to get an insurance policy, because
as soon as possible.
Yeah, as soon as possible. And you can use that money, that cash value, for college or buying a car. So
you can use it for that. And then too, like you see, you're not anticipating getting ill. And I'm gonna use myself as an example. I had a term policy. I just personally converted myself a couple of months ago that I had since 1999. I'm 54 years old now. I think in 99, I'm not a math person. I might have been like 33, 34 years old at that time. But with that being said, that's another thing. When I converted it over, you don't have to do medical again. So what they did, they based the new policy that I got a universal life policy. They based that policy off my medical history when I was 33 or 34, that age. So that's huge. So once again, using that scenario I gave you again, if somebody were to have cancer, since they had that policy since 99, they'll still get the conversion based on the health they were at that particular age. So that's another benefit of having, a term policy or getting a policy early as well.
So this thing, I started a policy when I was in my early 20s, and I have cash value. So I can take that out and use that money for anything.
Yep.
So I don't think,
No, go ahead.
I don't think people know that if they buy different policies, and you can also use that policy toward buying a house if you are set up. I mean, you get a policy early on where
you can use some of that money to allocate it for that. I give you a prime example. I'm an entrepreneur. I've done different things, and like I tell people, life insurance is for the living. I'm not talking about the people who are living after you're gone for yourself. I actually use, like you just said, I actually use one of my own policies, the cash out of that to do some business ventures that I did, so you don't have to be dead in order to, use your policy. If you have a cash value policy, like a, universal life type policy, then you can use that money for other things as well.
So in other words, insurance is wealth.
Yep.
It's past generation.
It helps build legacy, of course you don't want to have a come up, use a little slang terms, somebody dying. But with that being said, once again, in our community, you see these people, these GoFundMe's and all these different things, trying to scrap up money when somebody does pass, and that same money they were trying to scrap up to, have that funeral or whatever they're trying to do. If somebody just would have had even just like a simple burial policy, the money that would be allocated towards that would be probably way greater than what that funeral cost would be. And then people might actually have some money left over to do some other things as well.
Yeah. Can I put an insurance policy on anybody?
No, you can't just put it on anybody. No. So, I can't just put an insurance policy on grandma or my neighbor across the street. Now, if they give you permission or something like that, and it's something that's communicated from that standpoint, then, they will have to sign off on it, in order to do a policy like that. So you just can't go get a policy on somebody that they don't know they have a policy on them. You cannot do that.
Okay. That's information you need to know. So I'm just trying to figure out, so you say get an insurance policy as soon as possible, preferably a variable especially on a family member. And when you're older, they put in lines to doing a term. Like you can get a higher term.
You see, it's kind of, I can't make, once again, my motto, customer service with a personal touch. I don't want to sound like I'm being difficult or being, like I said, it depends, because like I say, every situation is different. That's why you have to have that discussion to see what's going on, Sometimes when people are older, I suggest getting a term policy, but it depends on once again, what they're trying to do. We have to have those discussions to see which is going to be the best for that particular individual. Because now like a universal life type policy is going to be more expensive than the term policy as well.
Okay.
So like I said, different factors that we have to take a look at just to make sure. And I want to bring this up too, Mike, as well. Even if people have insurance on their jobs, that's key. It's good. Take anything they give you in your job as far as life insurance is concerned. However, with that being said, you want to make sure that you have your own personal policy, because what happens is most companies, once you leave that company, you can't take that insurance policy with you. So it would behoove you to actually get your own policy. So just in case that in the event that does happen, you'll have something in place. Even with COVID, you might think a lot of people, I've written more life insurance this year, probably in some years past, because of COVID. But it wasn't because people were thinking they were going to die or anything like that. I mean, that probably played some part in it. But what they realized, some of the things I've been telling them, once again, people who got furloughed, people got laid off, they say, oh, I don't have any insurance anymore, so I need to get life insurance. Or some of these companies, what they've done because of COVID, they've cut back on some of these benefits. And I know some companies who gave life insurance at one time are not giving that anymore. So what they've done is taking that off the table, so you don't have that benefit anymore. So people are trying to get the means of having, life insurance. And that's what I've been really educating people on since I've been in the industry about that. But sometimes, people have to experience it for themselves and see it before it makes sense to them.
So just because you got a job and have insurance, when you leave your job, that insurance stays with the company. It does not go with you.
Most companies, you want to check, because a lot of people, you just need to check, but I guarantee you, majority of the company, I'm gonna say probably over 90%, if not more, once you leave, you're not taking it with you.
Okay, I think a lot of people they're not even educated or don't even know that.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm gonna mention renter's insurance for as well. My wife, one thing that happened to her was her property caught fire, and just on renter's insurance policy, even I don't even think people know if your stuff got stolen. If you have renter's insurance, if it's in storage, you're protected. Am I right?
So let's make sure I'm gonna clarify. So yeah, say for instance, if somebody, like you said, I know you got properties and somebody was renting one of your properties, your property would be covered under the landlord policy. But the person who's renting from you, like you said, they would need to have renter's insurance. So God forbid if the house were to burn down or something were to happen, or like you just said, something got stolen and they don't have a renter's insurance, they just out of luck. So they do need renter's insurance. And it does cover, at least with Allstate, if I have renter's insurance and I have some stuff in storage, that stuff in storage is covered as well.
Yeah, I guess I've been encountered where insurance, I've been fortunate to have it where even with a landlord policy, when my property caught fire, that landlord policy covered me for the rent I missed as well.
Yep, exactly.
So
I'm sorry, go ahead.
I don't think people know that about to having that landlord policy, what it covers in case something happened like that, where it covers the missing rent. Now the tenant didn't have renter's insurance. Now they stuff didn't get covered.
Exactly. So yeah, your property burned down and that stuff got burned up and they didn't have renter's insurance. And that's one thing too. Renter's insurance is cheap. On average, it's probably gonna be anywhere from $11 to about $20 on the high end, maybe $30. But you think about it. I know somebody personally who didn't have it. I told them to get it. They didn't get it. And then the stuff ended up getting burned up. And I mean, for just pennies on the dollar, pretty much they would at least have a minimum with Allstate. Our minimum for renter's insurance is $15,000. They lost $5,000 worth of stuff. If they would have had the renter's insurance, they would have had more than enough money to cover, the items that they lost. Okay. And one thing too, we're talking about landlord policies as well. And you also want to make sure that you get the right policy, because sometimes when people buy properties, they're flipping houses and things like that. Sometimes they think they need the landlord policy. When the house is being flipped and being remodeled, we need builder's risk insurance for that. So you have to make sure that you have the right policy.
Yeah, I didn't know you needed that. That's something I didn't know.
Exactly. And some people think I got a landlord policy. I flipped this house. We gonna rehab it. and they have a landlord policy, but you want to make sure you have the right coverage, because potentially if you have coverage, the wrong coverage, insurance coverage, there's a possibility an insurance company might not actually execute that policy for you because you didn't have the right coverage and the right policy.
Hey, what about umbrella policy?
Umbrella policy, from a personal standpoint, most companies require you to have your home and auto in order to get a personal umbrella policy. But the thing is too, but most companies, they want you to max out your auto, and they want you to have a certain point where you need to be on your home. It's kind of like additional coverage once you've passed that point. So with Allstate here in Texas, of course, it's $250, $500 for the auto. It's your bodily injury limits that you have to have, and I believe it's $300,000 on the home. So of course, what happens if anything were to happen, you have to max out on your coverage that you have, and then most policies, like with Allstate, we go up to most people get $1 million personal umbrella policy on top of what they already have normally.
Yeah, and that umbrella policy in case you have other properties, correct? Or
then like you said, if you have a landlord policy or something like that, it will cover that property as well.
Okay. Yeah, I know in the world of entrepreneurs, sometimes you need that extra coverage, especially if you outside of the building risk policy. Somebody may sue you for getting hurt on that property, and then they don't just go after your corporation, they go after you individual.
So you picked another thing. It is so hard to try to get so many things. That's why you have to talk to an agent about these different things, because it's a lot more detailed things that we have to discuss about that. But you just made it a key point as well, because one thing on like a homeowner's insurance policy and landlord policy is called liability insurance. Once again, that's what you just said. If somebody were to come on your property and they were to get injured, and they could sue you. So you want to make sure that you have the right coverage for that as well. And I'm like the old Baptist preacher, don't do as I do as I say do. If you have somebody come do repairs on your home, you need to make sure that they are bonded or insured, or at least insured as well. Because if you have somebody like a handyman or somebody come to your home, or anybody come to your house to do work for you that you called out, but they don't have insurance and they get injured, they can sue you. So you want to make sure that anybody that you use for repairs and stuff like that, they have insurance, because they can come back and sue you, and they can go against you as well. And go ahead.
So be careful with the handyman you send out to do work.
Yeah, exactly. Hey, he needs to have his insurance, because like I said, if he gets hurt doing work for you, you will be liable. If they find out to say that he got hurt and you were liable, you would have to pay out and take care of him or her.
Wow. Mm-hmm. Okay. So watch these little handymans you guys have working on your house.
Going back to homeowners insurance, auto insurance as well. So you want to make sure you have the right coverages. And you'll be amazed, Monty, how many people I talk to who've owned homes for 25, 30 years. And they say, Chris, you're the first person who's sat down and explained the policy with me. Because a lot of people get the policy, and you probably run into this all the time. Don't get me wrong, people call me cheap. I say I'm frugal, but when it comes to insurance, you want to make sure you got the right coverages, man, because sometimes cheap ain't always good. Now, if you get something that's cheap, you got all the coverage, hey, more power to you. But I'll give you a prime example. I had a situation just the other day. Somebody said, Chris, your homeowner's insurance policy is about $800 more than this other company. I think I'm going to go with them. And you know how I do. I'm not your typical agent from this standpoint as well. I'll look at people's stuff. Even if they don't go with me, I'll still evaluate, make sure they had the right thing. They said they're going to go with the other company. I said, let me take a look at it. I took a look at it. I didn't see certain things that were on there. I said, it's a possibility it could be on there. It's just, it's not listed. You go back and follow up. And they went back to the other company that I was $800 more than. And those two things, I told them they probably would need, what they did need. The other company said they could do it as an endorsement, meaning they could add it on, but it's a cost to add it on. To make a long story short, that policy ended up being $500 more than mine once because mine was already included. It was what was called water backup and residential glass. And it was in there. So when they added it into the policy they had gotten, they ended up being $500 more. They ended up going with me, but they were so glad that I took a look at it, because there's a possibility if they would have gone with that other company and that stuff, something would have happened and that stuff would have covered, they had been coming out of their own pocket.
Right. Yeah. Man, insurance is a lot of things to tackle. Do you have a checklist you go over your clients with when they come see you a visit. Huh. So you have that in place already.
Oh yeah, I have a checklist. I mean, like I said, I go line by line. When I do a home policy, auto policy, I go by line. I'll tell them, if you already know, tell me, Chris, I know it already. But if not, I go over every aspect of the policy because they didn't know, and I know they're not going to get everything, but you need to have a generality of what the policy is all about. And like I said, I'm there for them if they have any questions, anything like that, because you didn't need to know what you have, because like the discussion I told you I have, whether it's an auto policy or a home policy, I tell my customers, I don't care if it's on a weekend. If you're in a car accident, you should call 2 people. I say call the police first, then call me. I tell them to call the police, even if it's your fault. Call the police, and the reason being, I got a situation right now where one of my customers hit somebody. They admitted fault, but they didn't call the police. The person they hit had some previous damage from probably another accident, so they try to get a windfall off my customer and try and get everything fixed on their dime. So I said, even if it's your fault, call the police. And if it's not your fault, somebody like, Monty, I got you. Don't worry about it. And I said, they might be sincere. They might think it's going to be only $300 or $400 to get the car fixed. But when they found out it's $3,400, I said, they get insurance amnesia. And they like, I don't know if this is my fault or not. So once again, I say, I don't care if they got a halo over their head and wings on their back. Call the police.
Come for it. Yeah. So even if it's a small bump in the back, hey, they feel like it's, go ahead and call the insurance company, call the police. Yeah, I agree.
I'm not gonna lie to you. Of course, I've been in the insurance game for a long time, but back in the day, I used to be that cat would be, if something would happen, hey, I got you, like that. But now that me being in this industry for many, many years now, I don't recommend that to anybody. So, we've all been, as I say, I thank God for grace and wisdom, because some stuff we probably did when we were in college in our early 20s, boy.
Yeah. So you put it out there that, hey, the insurance company already know and have done studies on exactly how accidents have been set up and know exactly how it's been hit, whether or not before you go. They know if you're trying to beat the system in so many words.
I'm not gonna say all the time, but you got to be careful, because some people do try to get over. Sometimes people think this is a windfall. This is time for me to come up and get some money and everything. So you just got to be cautious, especially the times that we in now. Even pre-COVID, people were doing that, but even now, times are hard. And, sometimes people try to find ways to, circumvent the system and try to get a come up.
Okay. Chris, I don't want to take too much of your time up. I appreciate that all you do, good brother, because it's so much stuff. A lecture. I'm gonna invite you to NARAB so you can give your little presentation on as a sponsor. You come up and just display what you do and how you handle your services being Allstate. But you mind introducing yourself again?
Okay.
And put your information out there. So if people want to get in contact with you as well, go ahead, sir.
Yeah, once again, my name is Chris Zigler with the Zigler Agency Allstate, located in Frisco, Texas. And you can reach me. I'm going to give you my cell phone number. It's 214-870-4269. You can call me or text me. And then my email address is chriszigler@allstate.com. It's ChrisZeiegler@allstate.com. No dots between the Chris and the Ziglers all together. And, I'll give you a call if you have any questions or you think you might have some concerns or just need some general knowledge about some things. Give me a shout. I'll be more than happy to, help you out. But then if you don't call me, just call an agent out there, because, and I'm going to leave with this too, call an agent, because I had a situation where people want to do everything online these days, and they get themselves in a whole bunch of hurt and confusion because they don't take advantage of all the discounts that they don't know that are out there. So it's always good to call an agent, because they can kind of guide you and personally tutor you on what needs to be done to have the best policy that you can have.
Okay, I appreciate it, Chris. And I'll be looking to we got our annual conference coming up, so I'm gonna be seeing you next week. So you take care, and I look forward to working with you in the near future.
And then before you go, one more thing. I do have a radio show, Building Wealth Together, that comes on at 12 noon today. It can be seen on KHVN, Heaven 97, or you can go on the app to see it too. It's from noon to 1. And it's me and a couple other people on there, a few other people. We talk about insurance, mortgages, real estate, and credit as well. And we just talk about life lessons and things from that standpoint. It's called Building Wealth Together. And we have a site is Building Wealth Together Radio .com.
Okay, I appreciate it, Chris, and I'll tune in this afternoon to check you out.
In fact, Monty was on the show too, and he did a phenomenal job, and I appreciate when you came on, Monty.
Okay, no problem, Chris. I'll talk to you soon, sir.
All right.
Thanks.
Have a
Thanks
good one.
again. Bye.